Greetings, this is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host, and today we'll take a look at a few movies, beginning with Finding Forrester. This is a Sean Connery vehicle. It has a cast of many, including a set of talented young black actors. The setting is the Bronx, a kind of a rundown neighborhood. This is a horror film, I think this is the correct genre to put it in. This is a story about a young black lad named Fly who witnesses a transition or change in his best friend, longtime boyhood chum, Jamal. This takes place in the vicinity of a rundown 5 or 6 story apartment tower. It begins with their noticing a strange older man, a white dude, who is looking at them from the top window, particularly as they play a b-ball in the court. They're a little uneasy about this, and there's a good deal of speculation about this particular individual, but no one seems to know who he is, or he doesn't seem to leave, so he doesn't seem all that threatening, unless, of course, he flies out at night somewhere or other and does mischief. Well, Fly is close, as I mentioned, to Jamal, and Jamal, on a gang dare, goes up into this apartment to kind of check it out, and he goes there. He notices a very creepy, strange place full of books and so forth. Very weird and creepy. He hears a noise, and he leaves abruptly, leaving a backpack, a knapsack of his there in the process. He returns and tells Fly and the other members of the gang about the experience and so forth. A little later, the next day, soon thereafter, he is struck almost by the knapsack flung from the upper floor of this particular apartment building. He looks up. He's kind of startled and a little concerned. Jamal is also an object of concern to Fly, who has already noticed a change in his friend. He watches in horror as his friend is drawn to this apartment and this strange fellow. This continues with Jamal actually visiting this particular older fellow, and becomes drawn into his orbit. And from Fly's perspective, it's as if his friend were almost dead. It's like his body had been removed from him, and he looked the same, but he wasn't. There was an alien creature in him, a strange, monstrous creature, a brainiac. And he was very concerned. It was almost like the old Body Snatcher movie concept. At any rate, he watches Jamal become more and more remote to the gang, to his old neighborhoods and friends. He seems to be completely in the sway of this old culture vampire, and apparently becoming one himself. I think toward the end of the movie, we see Fly as sort of a radicalized young man with new perceptions of the threat to his neighborhood and his people, revolutionized, carrying a pick and torch as in the old Frankenstein movie, ready to do battle for his people. Now, this particular film also has some interesting scenes along the way showing this transition. It's basically, of course, the old Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story. And we see the Dr. Jekyll, that is the perceptive young Jamal, slowly change into the Mr. Hyde of a sort of white cultural vampire. Now, along the way, he goes to a private school, and there he encounters academic ghouls. They perceive in him a vampire in transition and a hostile toward him, as ghouls tend to be hostile toward vampires and obstructive. But he plugs away. He meets also a young white vampire who takes an interest in him, helps him out, and so forth. She admires the way he stands up to the ghouls, and I think maybe in the back of her mind sees the two of them maybe at some time journeying all around the world, striking libraries and drinking up, draining the succulent data. At any rate, he is also helped by the Sean Connery character, Forrester, who is his mentor in this particular film. At one point, toward the end, he actually comes to this academic institution to save his protege, Jamal, from the ghouls. He basically kicks the derriere, and the vampires are victorious. So toward the end of the film, Jamal has completely transformed. We also see him moving into Forrester's old tower, and in a sense, symbolically, he has become Forrester. He is a black Forrester, but he is still the same old cultural vampire. As for Forrester, we see him no longer needed in the Bronx, going back to the old homeland of Scotland on a trip, and then he takes another trip to hell, as a matter of fact, basically the pit, before he dies. At any rate, it's an interesting horror flick concept, and I think some people might find it interesting to see and take a neutral position on this particular film. Also, another film I'll talk about briefly is Traffic. This was directed by Mr. Soderbergh. It stars Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones and the cast of many. This is an ugly film, and it's on an ugly subject. It may be that Mr. Soderbergh and the writer thought that by rendering the story as he has made his argument that it is ugly business, and if that's the case, that certainly is true. But I don't know that that justifies even producing and putting this film in movie houses. It starts out in a rather confused way. There are lots of cuts. It sort of sprawls between Southern California and the adjoining northern Mexico, and with a little eastern forays into the Washington, D.C. area, and I believe Philadelphia, if I remember correctly. The film gets started with these sort of shards of the traffic world, the trafficking world. We get a little look at a couple of Mexican police officers, amongst whom was Del Toro, and we also get a look at a sense of the drug cartel operating there. Plus, we get a military official, a general actually, in the Mexican military, who is presumably active in combating this problem in conjunction with his relatives in America. We also have in America, in Southern California, amongst the local police, a couple of California police officers working as kind of jump out, undercover types. They're actually filming and they're taking down audio of people that they are checking out under observation. This is a Mexican American and a black American. Now, actually the funniest or the loudest, the best laugh in the film, I'll put it that way, came when the Mexican American made an allusion about the opportunity to arrest white people. Sign of the times, I guess. At any rate, we also get cuts into Fed cops, border patrol areas, and so forth. We get cuts in regard to some of the people mixed up on the American side in the drug trafficking, and also some cuts into the look of those using the drugs in brief. Perhaps a shard of violence here and there along the way too. Then we finally cut to the Michael Douglas character. And from here on, at least, there is a sense of direction of sorts. He provides that as Robert Lewis, a rather well-to-do fellow, probably a lawyer. He, I think, is operating out of Philadelphia. Of course, with their famed Philadelphia lawyers and so forth, that kind of dovetails, I suppose. Yeah, at any rate, he has been offered a position in Washington as the drug czar. It's kind of odd that they use the word czar, but it does immediately kind of put people's minds on Russia for whatever purpose that may have. But anyway, we see him. He's married. He has a daughter. She is a teenager, a pretty young woman, very smart. He has her going to a private school where she excels, making A's and so forth. So he thinks things are going well. He has an attractive wife, a pretty young daughter, smart, seems to be doing everything correctly. He lives in a very nice neighborhood, has a big house and all of that. Is successful occupationally, is respected, and now he has this new office which will add a certain additional credentials, as it were, to, I'm sure, a full pantry of them. Well, he decides, once accepting the position, to go forth and get a first-hand look at the problem. So he and his entourage then fly out to California, and we see him visiting with the American locals, the various police, Fed cops, border patrols, and so forth, meeting with some of the Mexican officials and so forth, stressing that we got to beat this problem and so forth. Well, he ends up looking kind of doofus, actually, because his daughter is deep into this problem herself. So one wonders about his perception. She and her pals are her school chums at the elite institution are seen while he's away taking drugs and having casual sexual relations and seemingly full of academic gibberish of the politically correct kind, the philosophically correct kind, and basically living a hedonistic life. One is reminded of the great epistolist Paul's comment that if Yeshua Christ did not die and resurrect, then we are all perished, and one may as well live a life of hedonism, of wine, women, and song, so to speak, or as they put it nowadays, drugs and sex and rock and roll. Well, none of these people are believers, so there's no righteousness in them, so they live a life which is immoral and they're full of the kind of political baloney put forth in the academic world right now. Now, this particular director, Soderbergh, did not spell this out. He may have meant to imply it. I doubt it, but it looks like the fundamental problem here is in the educational system itself, and the kind of milieu in which young folks are brought up, educated, and so forth, so that they have this sort of perspective. The parents, of course, also play a part in setting home environment. Now, this particular film seems to come down pretty much on the side that the family is the place where this must be solved. We see Michael Douglas slowly, with little shards again here and there of his personal life, beginning to understand his daughter's terrible situation. She's taking crack in the house, the bathroom, and so forth, and she's moving on to doing opium or opium derivatives or synthetics, and so she's really in problems here. She's kind of helped along with one of her male chums from the elite school. They go down to a black neighborhood, apparently, a little run down, and they go to a crack house where we see an individual through a hole who is selling the stuff, and then they check into a cheap motel that's used for prostitution, and enjoy their drugs and casual sex. Well, as I say, it is an ugly film from beginning to end, and there's no getting around it. It really, when you look at this, you can't understand actually why they put it out anyhow. But they did, and so Douglas. This is the first film, by the way, that Michael Douglas made that I think was really unworthy. He usually is associated with pretty good films and seems to take care in that regard. Maybe he's getting too long in the tooth now to care. But at any rate, he is on the trail now. He tries in a kind of a fumbling way, a kind of a chaotic way, actually, to save his daughter. He gets her to go to a group therapy type organization. It may be an AA meeting. At any rate, it does not take her long to feel uncomfortable, and she takes a hike at the first opportunity. She goes immediately to her abode. She steals jewels and whatever she can get to pawn, and to go back to this neighborhood and get drugs. When she can't find anything else to pawn, she pawns her body. She's basically hit rock bottom. She's hit the gutter. Her father, desperate, gets that chum from the elite school and forces him to help Douglas, the Robert Lewis character, find his daughter. And this takes a little effort. He finds the crack house gent and finds out that this is not such a nice guy. And he's really getting an eye-opener here of the drug traffic lower end. He eventually rescues his daughter. The reality of his own personal situation is such that he had to resign as drug czar because it would be, although the newspapers in this particular film, they cite the Washington Post, were willing to cover up for the Robert Lewis character in regard to his daughter's problem. He realized that the situation was so acute that he could not hold his position as drug czar. So he leaves that and devotes his attention to his family. Now, his wife has been something of a problem in this. As I mentioned, it seems to focus on the family as the primary reason for children going off the straight and narrow, so to speak. She used drugs apparently back in the 60s or 70s, and felt it was like growing pains that her daughter would overcome with time. Michael Douglas, of course, when he finds her taking crack and whatnot, realizes it's gone far beyond what his wife had perceived, and major steps had to be taken. Well, he rescues his daughter from this situation, and the film more or less ends with her in an AA-type meeting, and she seems to be serious this time, and he is there, Michael Douglas, also, and at one point stands up to say that he's there to help his daughter however he can. Now, my references to AA should not in any way be thought of as derogatory or denigrating, because this is a wonderful organization which has saved scores of thousands of people and is altogether commendable. Now, this particular film also has some little bits of time spent to try to give a certain flavor to some of the support characters, such as the couple of Mexican policemen, the two American policemen in particular that have been doing undercover work, and also to a family, the Iolas, the Iola Italian family, which is mixed up in the drug trafficking on the American side, and so forth. But these are not really well developed characters, but they have just been given a certain color so that some kind of feeling might be developed in regard to them somehow or other. But basically, I did not care for this film, don't recommend it, and don't think that it even should have been made. So on that note, caveat. Well, that's it, a wrap. We're out of time. This is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. Appreciate your tuning in. Hope to see you again next time.